Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show this week, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you for being here. We got a really good show for you today. We're going to go through all the arena and indoor action from this past weekend, but we also have an interview with a head coach from the TAL. I don't know if saying the TAL is redundant. Just TAL. We've got an interview with a head coach from the Arena League, TAL. His name is Tony O'Neill from the Duluth Harbor Monsters. So had a chance to chat with him about the TAL. I truthfully didn't know a ton about it heading into this interview, so I got to learn a little bit about the league, about how it got started, some of the changes from last year to this year, and as well as learning a little bit more about Coach O'Neill's path to being a head coach in the TAL. So it's a good interview. I think it was pretty good. I think you guys are going to like it. But before we dive into that, before we dive into the arena and indoor recaps from this past weekend, it's time to plug the socials. That's right. Please make sure you're following us at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on every social you can think of, X/Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky Threads, all the things and stuff. Go follow us on all the socials. Come say hi, interact. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what game you're looking forward to the most. I love interacting with people on there, and it's fun being able to chop it up with folks who like arena ball, just like me. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello. Thank you for being here. Please make sure you're subscribing to the channel and liking the video as well so we can continue to grow this thing out. We got some cool things on the YouTube channel. I had an episode of the Turf Tapes earlier this week with Zach Keelman that was very fun and very cool to do, a game between the Toronto Phantoms and the New York Dragons. That was a fun one from 2001, Aaron Garcia. If you know, you know. So go check that out, like all the videos, subscribe to the channel, really helps, and share it with a friend if you're feeling frisky, if you're feeling up to it. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you're rating the show 5 stars, liking the episode, sharing with a friend, doing all the things and stuff. You know the deal if you've been here before. But if you haven't, hello. Thank you for joining for the first time here. So let's not waste any more time. I'm going to stop rambling now. Here's the interview with Coach Tony O'Neill. All right, on the show this week, we have the head coach of the Duluth Harbor Monsters of the Arena League, the TAL for short. His name is Coach Tony O'Neill. Coach, thank you for taking the time to hop on here today. We're getting close to throw off here. And thus I didn't say kickoff, I said throw off of the 2025 TAL season. How are things shaping up for the team now that we're a couple weeks away at this point?
Yeah, it's never stopped for us, man. Our grind started right after the championship game to get the next year's roster solidified for this year.
Yeah.
We knew what we were doing when we set the tone for that year one, and we turned our season around, and how other teams would begin recruiting. So we wanted to make sure we had a head start on all of it.
Yeah, I've heard some interviews you've been doing over the past year or so, and it seems like preparation for the 2025 season started, the day after the 2024 championship?
Literally the day after. Yeah, it hasn't stopped. A lot of twists and turns along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been grinding, man. It's been nonstop. Myself, our GM Steve Walters, and then our lead head scout Ben Matoy. It's just been a grind. It's been a grind.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it has, and we'll dive into that, like what the offseason preparations look like for the team. But I want to learn a little bit about you and your background that ultimately led you to becoming the head coach at Duluth. Like, tell me about your football journey and what ultimately led to this opportunity.
Oh, right on. Yeah, so my football journey has been hellish. I began football in Miami, Florida. I'm
Okay.
a Florida kid. My mom was military, so I wound up moving to Maryland with her. I think they were 4A out there. Dominated that scene, had earned many of offers, some that were very serious about me. But I was a knucklehead and, made that mistake and lost that scholarship, so I had to take the JUCO route. Wound up in Minnesota at Hibbing and Wasabi Range, and then earned my full ride to North Dakota, which was the Fighting Sioux at the time. Now they're the Fighting Hawks. And then dove into arena. We were a D1 AA college. So that last year where they got to start playing Texas Tech, where they played against Michael Crabtree, I was no longer there. So I didn't get to compete at that higher level. So obviously it wasn't, my stats and what we did wasn't taken that seriously to get to a combine. So I had stopped playing ball. I had started coaching and just being a dad, and my cousin, Michael Ebanks, actually had started playing arena ball, and it piqued my interest because I was like, man, he's a year younger, but that's my baby cousin. So if he's dominating, I had interest in it. So I
Yeah.
went over to the lacrosse Spartans and had my way with that league for a little bit before I busted up my shoulder, and then the dream was over just like that as soon as it began.
Yeah.
So I always knew if I wasn't going to be meant to play at the highest of levels, that I wanted to do something with coaching. Whether it was at the high school level, just building my tool bag and becoming better leader of men, and then potentially getting into college. But this literally fell in my lap. I was coaching at Denfeld High School. They were not a winning team. Um, and I was able to change that culture. The coaches allowed me to be myself. So I was the position coach for the offensive line, but I was also coaching up running backs, DBs, defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, corners. I was everywhere,
Yeah.
and nobody never made it feel like I was stepping on their toes. They were
Right.
more of a sponge. So changed that program around in 1 year. Won our first playoff game. Finally beat Hermantown. Had them come visit us, and then we lost that game. And then people started taking notice around the community. Our owner, Brent and Steve Walters, had reached out to me. I owned a restaurant, a Caribbean restaurant out here.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to be a food sponsor because I knew that the Harbor Monsters were coming to town, and I knew how it all worked. Having played, so I wanted to be a food sponsor, but we wanted to have a conversation, and they offered me the job right then and there. So yeah, that's kind of how this process took off. At the time, I hit up my best friend who was another coach, and I wanted him to be the offense coordinator, and we just took this role on, man, and went and did the TAL meeting and met with all the bigwigs and went over the rules that changed. It had to be almost 1,000 times within the season.
I bet.
But we rolled with it.
Yeah.
We hunkered down, we rolled with it, and we nailed it.
Yeah, the first year growing pains of any league, I'm sure weren't fun to go through, but obviously you rolled with the punches. It's funny to hear that you were just like, hey, I want to be a food sponsor. I want to be involved. And then
Yeah,
suddenly, hey, you're the head coach. Like,
yeah.
what?
It turned because at the same time I knew that and it's not a knock against anybody, but to lead men that are in order to build a winning culture, you have to get dogs.
Yeah.
And in order to get dogs and have them on your team, you got to be able to lead and control dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't say that as a possessive thing, just different attitudes, different cultures,
Right.
different upbringings. You got to be relatable. And you got to be able to understand, that their aggression may not necessarily be towards you, can't be timid. It may just be a situation going on at home. And you got to be able to lead them out of that.
Yeah.
So I felt like my calling was just that. And I was able to do that and provide that. And that's how we moved.
That's awesome. Well, I was doing some digging, and pun intended. You'll see where I'm going with this with the lacrosse Spartans of the IFL, and you had quite a head coach in Gilbert Brown, Packers legend. What did you
Yeah.
learn from the Gravedigger that you may still use today in coaching in that leadership style?
Well, first and foremost, never do the gravedigger thing he used to do on the field. He didn't like that very much. That's his celebration. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he was a great man. Him and his brother Kyle Brown, who also played for the Detroit Lions, they both were coaching. We also had a great offense coordinator at the time. His name is escaping me at the moment. Last name Sanchez. He sits on the head of the UFL as like a player director.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Player. So yeah, we had Sanchez as offensive coordinator. I met a Hall of Fame receiver, Brian Prey. Good friends to this day. He kind of took me under his wing as a vet who has been in the IFL for a while. But yeah, it was a great time, a short time, but a great time. Got to see what it was like to be a pro and to be treated like a pro.
Yeah.
And that kind of set the standard for what we wanted to do moving forward here in Duluth.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a good little network of coaches and vets to kind of guide you through your career. So being able to see that take shape with Duluth in their first year is really awesome to see.
Absolutely.
I'm not super familiar with the TAL, and I'll be very honest with you. I caught a couple games last year. wasn't fully invested in it, but I'm going to be a lot more invested in it this year.
Right.
So it's a perfect opportunity for me to learn about it. And what better way to learn about it than to pick your brain? So for folks that are watching or listening to this, odds are they probably know of arena football, like the classic tried and true traditional arena football.
Correct.
How does the TAL differ from that traditional game, and how is it the same?
So originally we had a standard set that we were completely different from what you would already recognize, obviously.
Yeah.
It was more backyard, more excitement, more plays to be made because you could have two quarterbacks on the field at once.
Hmm.
Backward passes, forward passes. It was more flag style. That's the best way to put it. If you watch,
Okay.
the Olympic flag teams, or if you watch high level uh, flag football with adults, that's exactly what it was, but with pads. This year they changed the rules, so it's no longer 6 versus 6; it's 7 versus 7.
Okay.
They incorporated more arena rules, so the center is now no longer eligible. They have it set up for a trench war, where it's the center versus the D tackle or defensive lineman. Now,
Okay.
so that's now stationary. The defensive lineman that is in front of the center, which is quote unquote the D tackle, can no longer drop back into coverage. He has to go forward. He has to be a pass rusher or a run stopper. Um, the quarterback, they have implemented a running lane for the quarterbacks. They have to pass through a 6 inch or 6 yard barrier through the line of scrimmage. So once they pass through that, they can go anywhere on the field. They can run, left, right, however they want to go. But they must pass that line of scrimmage within that 6 yard barrier. So they're essentially trying to force you to go through that run stop defender. Running backs are now implemented again, just what you would see with the normal arena team. The two guards that you would normally see at the arena level, the quote unquote tackles,
Hmm.
can be stationary or they can be eligible. So those guys can still stay in and block or they can be released. So the way we recruited, we took tight end frames for that position. So that tight ends that could run block and then also go out on routes and catch. But yeah, that's essentially it. Everything else is just the same. And then you have the throw off rule, which you kind of hinted to begin with. Same dynamic as what the NFL is. Once the ball is thrown off, the defenders, the kickoff or the throw off team, quote unquote, the quick kickoff team,
Yeah.
move until the returner catches the ball or until the ball lands, on the ground. Then
Okay.
can pursue and try to make a play.
So one of the biggest pain points that I've seen in all of football, not just arena football and indoor football, is it's hard to find really good, consistent offensive linemen, and it's hard to find a good kicker. Like you look in the NFL,
Yeah.
and you can't find 20 good kickers. Like it's such a rarity. And with how the TAL is set up with their rules, you kind of avoid those two big headaches and you can focus on the fun positions, if you will. Like, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the folks that make the big plays. How does that approach to roster building and coaching change with such a unique rule set?
Um, well, I don't want to give away what we do. But
Yeah.
our our way of going about it is to make sure that we have an efficient amount of skill sets that can act as though they're still, or should I say, we coach our guys to act as though they're still defensive linemen if they're DB.
Okay.
We coach our guys to act as though they're 6'8" tackles, even if though they're a 6'4" tight end. If we can give those skill sets, it only helps them in their tool bag to where they got to go. We moved up 11 guys last year off our roster.
Yeah. No kidding.
3 to the IFL, and the rest went to the AF1. One got a tryout with a UFL team. So like
Nice.
we're even though we were a brand new league, my name, who I know, the connections I have, still gave opportunities to these guys to move up and at least get a look, at minimum, get a look at what the next level looks like. Some of them didn't make it, but they know what they need to work on. So of course they're back.
Yeah.
But even though we won a championship with you last year, it doesn't make you solidified in our roster. You're going to still compete for your spot, and I think
Yeah.
that's what having so many dogs in a kennel allows us to do.
Right.
That we don't allow you to be comfortable here. I don't allow my coaches to be comfortable and complacent. Like, we want everybody
Yeah.
to get after it and get after it in a way that we dominate. How we started last year will not be remembered. It's how we finished.
Yeah.
How we start this year, but we're also still not. There's no championship hangover here. My last addressing of the 2024 season was earlier, thanking everybody for being here, being a part of what we built, setting the standard. But now we move forward. You
Yeah.
can't be hungover, and we have a huge target on our backs. I talk a lot of junk on social media. I make memes. I have fun. I mean, I have absolute fun with it.
As you should. Yeah.
This is not necessarily a job for me. I'm one of the guys. I'm in the locker room. I mean, I'm respected as a coach, but I'm one of the guys. I'm not old. I just hit 40. I'm unk status now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not here to be a dictator. We're going to buy into the philosophy. We're going to win as a team. We're going to make adjustments as a team, and we're just going to get after it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the 11 players that you were able to get moved up. I heard you in an interview earlier today while doing some prep for this that you referred to it as graduating players. And I think that's a great way to think about it. And like, I was looking at the roster from last year. I was like, oh, this guy's in Washington. Oh,
Yeah.
this guy's in Corp. Like, you look at all these names, it's like, oh, wow, these are notable playmakers on these teams now
Yeah.
that made that jump. So how do you see not just Duluth, but the TAL kind of like positioning itself in the arena football landscape as a whole moving forward? Is it you envision it always being like a developmental league for those leagues, or do you see it eventually growing to something where you're neck and neck right on the same level?
I mean, the IFL will always be respected and known as the Premier League, like the AFL once was. Um,
Yeah.
I will never say that we will be on the IFL level.
Hmm.
As long as the owners and the coaches keep doing what they're supposed to do at that level, um, they'll they'll continue to be the number one league and destination to go to because of the connections that they have to the NFL, to the CFL,
Right.
so on and so forth. But what I will say is that in due time we will jump over every other league in this conference.
Hmm.
Like when you and this isn't a shot, please, this isn't a shot. But when you can take a semi-pro team and beat an undefeated championship caliber team at the NAL, and then have your head coach use it as a scapegoat that, oh, well, our information was leaked and this and that, and that just kind of shows you,
Yeah.
like that's a not only a blow to the team, to the owner, but that's a blow to the league.
Yeah.
And that head coach is now my defensive coordinator or my assistant defense coordinator.
Wow.
So it's like you give recognition where it's due, and you reward players and coaches that put in the work to make
Yeah.
sure that their team is successful. Um, we'll never use anything as a scapegoat here. These teams that are being built by the commissioning staff, by Tommy, who's well known in the IFL, they're taking their due diligence. They're giving it a 2-year run. So like we knew there was gonna be an Arkansas team and an Eau Claire team our year one.
Yeah.
It takes 2 years to develop that team. So they do their
Right.
research. They make sure the marketing's there. They make sure the money's there before they ever announce. And then our owners have to be able to provide year one and year two in order to be considered real. So while they're coming in year one, year two is already paid for. Year one is already
Yeah.
paid for, and they're working on the funds for year three. So it's really a foolproof, brilliant plan,
Yeah. No
which is
kidding.
why I feel as though we will be around for the long haul. And then we have guys that are at a high caliber. Like for us, we just signed Dan the Threat Williams, who's an NFL player, played on 4 different NFL teams, played
Hmm.
on 2 different XFL teams. Still holds the most reception and touchdown record at Jacksonville State, where Dion was. And Travis Hunter and Shador and them all were, and they threw the
Yeah.
ball, tremendously. We have those guys coming in, and they can use us as a jettison to get back to where they want to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these things are important. And then I'm looking at other teams, and they're bringing in high caliber names as well. So it's just like they could have went to the IFL. They could easily went to the
Right.
IFL. There's IFL coaches right now still in the inbox, who I know personally, still in their inbox, like, hey man, we need you for the playoffs. Can you come play? But
Yeah,
the loyalty of our players, they're just not going. They're staying.
that's awesome.
But yeah, man, that's I think the TAL is around for a long haul. My number one goal, and it's not nothing against the TAL, but I want this team to be we're sustainable. We have a city that backs us, a
Yeah.
community that's in love with us, and we would be sustainable in the IFL. And that's a goal of mine where I would want to see ourselves in the 2027 season.
Okay.
So that's something that we're striving for, but we got to keep winning.
Yeah, slowly but surely you can get there. You just gotta keep building on it. And that's something I noticed while like flipping through games last year and like doing some research. I was like, initially the support took some time to get there, but as you made the run, it seemed like the community really rallied around you guys. And tell me about the culture around the team, around the fan base that has developed in year one that you're taking with you into year two and just continuing to build on.
Yeah, our fan base is great, man. We're a football city. We have the UMD Bulldogs, Division II school. There's won national championships there. We have the UMD hockey team. There's won national championships there. They're considered D1. College of Saint Scholastica, a D3 school that's won championships there. Like so, we are truly a football and college town. They love their sports. Something to do over the summer outside of going just to concerts and bear festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're in the community with these high school students, these middle school students, the elementary school students as well, hanging out, just showing our presence, and we're always well received. We've had one camp so far that we hosted last year. That was a great turnout as well. But the community is behind us, and it's a great thing to have when the lights go pitch black in the arena, and they are announcing these players and the cheers that are coming from the stands, and just the
Yeah.
you can it's almost like being at a concert. You see the phone flashlights out, and it's just it's something to easily fall in love with because this community is so tight, like it's so tight knit.
Yeah.
But they love us. They cheer for us. It's an eruption for the players. It's an eruption for when the coaches get introduced. It's an eruption for when I get
Yeah.
introduced. But yeah, we have a solid fan base, and we have some hometown heroes that are on the team as well that they come out and support,
That's
which is
sweet.
super important. Tim
Yeah.
Wenzel was a guy that kind of you know followed my path a little bit when it came to some things and fell through the cracks. But this is his opportunity to come out and ball, and he did last year, and he will again this year, and hopefully we can get him to where he needs to be.
Yeah, and that's something that you mentioned the community really rallying around and having those hometown heroes. I think that's so important for these smaller market teams. Like most of the teams in the TAL are smaller market, like they are. But I think that works in their favor because you can be the whole pie in this market, or you could be a piece of the pie in a bigger market. And I
Correct.
think that's what has really made the TAL successful
Yes.
and really be able to be like, we are this town's sports team.
Yes.
We're not one of the sports teams. So
Correct.
would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah. I mean, because like they've had the Huskies here, the baseball team, who they support, who we support. We showed up for their games as well. But that's generally it as far as a professional sports team.
Yeah.
And then you just have the Minnesota Vikings, and the one thing that we beat the Vikings to was a championship. So it it was. There's no shot to you Vikings fans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just what it is. It's facts. But like to have a winning culture, to establish a winning culture, going into year two, it's we only expect it to be completely sold out every game now, instead
Yeah.
of just like the playoffs and the. I mean, even though it wasn't sold out, we still had a huge fan base. Like it still was
Oh yeah.
erupting in there. So
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to build on year one heading into year two. But something that I'm very curious about heading into year one, let's go back. I know we're looking forward, but let's just go back. Bear with me. When you're entering this new league with a new rule set, what does the playbook creation process look like?
oh
Do
man.
you just bust out a notepad and being like, all right, I'm scribbling routes, or like what? How
Between
does that look like?
myself and my OC at the time, Junior Gregory, uh, man, we must have had pages and pages and pages of just like sticky notes. I'm at the restaurant. I should be cooking meals. I have sticky notes and post-it notes all over the place.
Yeah.
Calling each other because he was a business owner as well. We're calling each other throughout the day. I mean, it was a well-respected grind between him and I of
Yeah.
bouncing ideas off of each other, executing them at practice, and either throwing it away or adding it to the playbook. We found our formula was best when we put our egos aside. Not that we had egos anyway, but when we put it
Right.
aside and I was able to be like, hey man, that safety is flat footed as hell right now. I'll run this again, but also run the scheme behind it. Or he was able to scream out to me, hey man, that offensive lineman is tired. Maybe send the blitz from this side. Like it was so many things that was going on last year that we were in unison. It was like yin and yang, but we were the perfect spear
Yeah.
together to get these guys in order. And then once we locked in on the fact that, okay, well, we gave semi-pro guys an opportunity, but these guys that we're playing against are former SEC guys. They're aggressive, they're big,
Yeah.
and when I was looking at some of our players, not all, but some of our players that we replaced. I'm looking in their eyes, and it's the fear of God or dare headlights just are in them, and they're not wanting to be out there. I knew it
Yeah.
was time to make a change, and
Yeah.
I was able to reach out to Ben. He owns the program where he has a plethora of high talented individuals that he's supplying to the IFL, AFL, CFL, and now TAL. We were able to get those guys released and then bring those guys in, and they took off with what we already had established. We didn't change anything. It was literally
Yeah.
just the players, and the scheme stayed the same, and they came out and balled, and we went on a 7 game winning streak, including the championship, which made it 8. So
Yeah. That's a hell of a run to win Arena Mania 1, which love the name
yeah,
Arena Mania. That's A plus, knocked it out of the park, whoever came up with that.
absolutely.
What do you remember most about that game in particular?
Um, I remember about that game losing a friend. Unfortunately, I had a lot of respect. There was a lot of respect between me and the head coach of the Woo. And it just like you got to remember this is a year one team, um, and it was you could see the attitude change. You could see at one point they were up 12-0 in that game, and everything was
Hmm.
cool. And we were preparing for the goats. We thought the goats were going to win that game. That was the team that we wanted to play. They were 7-1. They beat us the first game. They escaped us the second game. We were looking forward to them the third game with the new roster.
Yeah.
And we wanted to beating them, which I definitely respect. Um, but then, losing can leave a bad taste in your mouth, and sometimes it's just not worth the friendship. It's not worth the mentorship. So it was just bittersweet.
Yeah.
But within the game, I just saw like our dogs rise to the occasion. Like they went from it being a big moment and a little bit of stage fright to this is our moment and this is our game and we're home and we're not going to lose this one. So
Yeah.
yeah, I remember our OC at the end of the game doing the snow angel in the middle of the logo.
Yeah.
I remember Brent picking me up and bear hugging me and the guys dosing me with Powerade. But yeah, it was a beautiful moment, man. It was a beautiful moment, but it was also bittersweet. So
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, we're turning the page to 2025. You've got a busy couple of weeks ahead of you with throw off happening sooner than we realize. We were talking before we hit record here about a podcast that's launching in tandem with a local sports radio station in Duluth. Tell me a little bit more about that.
yeah, that's iFan with Brian and David Cook. So what initially happens is that they go live every home game every Saturday at the bar at Hoops Brewery. Fans can come in and check it out if they choose so, or they can just tune into the radio. They normally have NFL guys or Green Bay Packer guys on the radio to start off talking to old players, and then they'll bring us in. We'll highlight a few players that week, and then I'll say what my spiel is and go from there.
Cool. Yeah. So is the first episode. So you said it's going to be weekly for home games, right?
Yeah, so our first episode is going to
Okay.
be this May 24th, I
Okay.
believe at noon. is when it airs. I believe they begin at 10 a.m., but we come on around noon,
Okay.
and we go from there. They interview us and they talk about the season and the excitement behind it, what we
Cool.
plan on doing to the opponents, who we plan on facing, and then yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure those will be posted on the Duluth Harbor Monsters socials. So
correct.
make sure you got everyone who's watching, listening to this is following along on those teams, follow along with the league. Make sure you're staying up to date with everything they got going on. Well, Coach, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time to teach me a little bit about the TAL and to shine some light on what you've got going on in Duluth. What can arena football fans expect tuning into the TAL, if some for the first time, some returning from last year, and what can they expect from this Duluth Harbor Monsters
Um,
team?
from the TAL perspective, an easy game to follow, an exciting game to follow.
Yeah,
It's set up to be scoring high points. It's. I mean, we brought in Coach Victor Mann and Coach Titus, so I plan on seeing a hellish team from them week one. I already have it in my mind that that's the team to beat right now.
yeah,
Coach Dorsey with the goats, with them having Boo Smith and Ryan Martinez, and then also Cato. Cato's number just got retired at Marshall. So I mean, everybody who is anybody should be tuning into this season.
right.
It's something to watch throughout the summer. It'll keep you happy, I assure you.
Yeah,
Everything is fast moving, everything is fast paced, so it's something you don't want to miss out on. Definitely check those guys out, check those teams out, and of course with us, the Duluth Harbor Monsters is BTA all season long,
yeah,
and so it's not. So
yeah.
we're coming. We're definitely coming.
Yeah, and I gotta say the branding of this entire league is just A1. Like just the logos are sharp. It's got the minor league appeal of, silly but serious
Yep.
logos and branding. I think it's perfect and it looks great on a t-shirt, looks great on a hat. I mean, I love the direction that this league is headed. It's gonna be awesome.
Outstanding. Appreciate that, boss.
Yeah. So I'll link all the socials to the Harbor Monsters in the description of this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, scroll down just a hair. It's right there. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, scroll down just a little bit. It's right there as well. So make sure you follow the Harbor Monsters on all socials and follow the TAL and let them know you heard them on Off the Wall. Coach, thank you again, man. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Big thanks to Coach O'Neill for joining the show and talking about the Duluth Harbor Monsters and TAL and what they're looking forward to for this upcoming season. It's going to be interesting to see how the league continues to grow and evolve. It sounds like they have a stable footing underneath them, and the league itself is headed in the right direction. We'll have to see if what he's saying about being the future of arena football, if that comes to fruition. I think he has a fair point with it being like no kickers, no offensive linemen. Those two positions are extremely difficult to field in the arena game, and nonetheless, like even more so to find quality people at those positions. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm definitely going to be tuned in a lot more this upcoming season. We're going to dive into the AF1 first. Only a couple games to dive into, so we'll be able to go through these pretty quickly. Two games from the past weekend. The first one was the Southwest Kansas Storm at the Billings Outlaws, and the Storm won this game 65-56. Nice little palindrome score there for those number folks at home. But heading into this game, Southwest Kansas was coming off of a bye week, surrounded in some uncertainty. Their quarterback, Jalen Morton, had gotten called up to the Birmingham Stallions at the UFL, and it wasn't totally clear if he was going to come back or what the deal was, but he ended up getting released by the Stallions and then rejoining the Storm, supposedly not missing a practice at all, with them having the bye week and never missing a beat. So the Storm looked really, really good in this game, and Jalen Morton was showing what he is capable of doing in this league and in this style of game. He looked comfortable, he was in control, and he was spreading the ball to his playmakers while being smart with the ball and using his feet, but not too much, just enough when he needed to and when they needed him to make a play on the ground. Charles Hall the fourth had 4 touchdowns, so I thought that was interesting. Charles Hall the fourth, 4 touchdowns. And then Shiloh Flanagan had a couple more as well. Very fun name, Shiloh Flanagan. Very fun receiver, big 6'5" guy. But nearly everybody on this Storm offense was not just involved, but thriving in this one. And this was super encouraging to see from the Storm, especially coming off of a bye where some teams come out a little bit sluggish or struggle to get back in rhythm. But that just wasn't the case here. The Storm are they're not locked into the playoffs, but the way they've been playing and the way they're positioned in the standings, they're basically locked into the playoffs now. And it's just a matter of will they get the 2 seed? All signs are pointing to yes. They would have to collapse a lot to get a 3 or a 4 at this point, but they look really good at this point in the season, look to finish strong and finishing 8-3. I think they play 11 games. Finishing 8-3 is very realistic based on their current run of form. But for Billings, they jumped out to a quick 9-0 lead here. They scored touchdown, extra point, deuce, all in rapid succession, and it seemed like they were ready for a shootout, which is exactly what this game was. First half ended, it was 37-37. And to put it in perspective, the score of the last time these two teams met was 49-31 at the end of the game. So they damn near matched the final score total of that last game in the first half of this one. And it turned into a track meet and something for those arena football purists out there to really drool over and be like, oh yeah, this is the stuff that we like. This is the stuff that we grew up watching. This is the stuff that we love. And the offense for the Billings Outlaws for most of the season leading up to this game was a problem for Billings. But ever since they had the additions of Darius Prince and Malik Henry at wide receiver and quarterback, they've reversed their fortunes and they've turned it into the team's strength. But now, in a weird way, the defense is now the weakness of this team in that they gave up 65 points in this game. So the offense scored 56. The defense gave up 65 or close to it if you take away the defensive touchdown that Storm had. I'm getting into semantics here. But as mentioned on the episode last week with defensive back Dwayne Hollis, it's a young group that they're still working to figure out camaraderie as a group and figure out where everyone plays in and really identifying what people's strengths are because Hollis came in from Corpus Christi not too long ago. They've got a couple other pieces that came in from Corpus Christi not too long ago. And it's just weird seeing the Outlaws just get roasted like this on the defensive side because Cedric Walker is not just the head coach, he's the defensive coordinator. And he usually has some pretty stingy defenses. He definitely had one last year, and it just isn't working out the same way for this upcoming season. So the offense was able to score more points, which is something they really, really needed. But the defense also started giving up more points, and that's never a good thing when the defense is giving up more points than the offense is scoring. Math. And the offense was able to get going in this one, but they had two key turnovers in this game that ended up being the difference. One late in the first half, one late in the second half, and that was basically it. You take away those two plays, Billings probably wins this game. So Storm played a clean game, was very efficient. Billings made a couple mistakes, two of them that were very costly, and that ended up being the difference in the game. So the offense is here for Billings. It's now time for the defense to get its act together, and I have faith in Coach Walker to be able to do just that. But the second game of the weekend was the fourth edition of Washington versus Oregon. Oregon ended up winning this game 52-20. So to cap off this small little 2-game slate, we got the fourth installment of the Battle of Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest Showdown, the somebody please win this damn game so I can turn it off. Whatever you want to call it. I've heard it be called different things to different people. But Oregon was able to even the series 2-2. So nice little ballerina series right now at 2-2. But it's interesting to see that they were able to split the series because that could be the foundation of a rivalry, not just this year, but heading into the next couple of years as well. Oregon played well in this one, but I cannot understate how poorly Washington played in this one either. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. This is about the Lightning now. The Lightning were very opportunistic of the Wolfpack's misfortunes, and their offense was able to score points in bunches. It seemed like they were just going to absolutely roll in the first half. Felt like they kind of took their foot off the gas pedal in the second half. Once they hit 52, they're like, all right, we're good. We're just going to coast here. Dalton Cole, 6 total touchdowns on the day. And then wide receiver Philip Harding, who was added within the past couple of weeks, had 7 catches for 110 yards and 3 first half touchdowns. That offensive production was from the first half would have been enough if they just stopped scoring there, but they were able to add on a couple more scores in the second half to really blow this thing wide open. And the defense for Oregon played well and was able to force multiple turnovers and force the Wolfpack into some uncomfortable situations. And it seemed like as soon as the Wolfpack started gaining some momentum on a passing play, the secondary was able to come in and punch the ball out or rip it and return it for a touchdown. Like they were just all over them, and there's nothing Washington could really do about it. This Oregon team has the playmakers on defense to make things interesting down the stretch. They could catch the wrong team or the right team, depending on your perspective, in the playoffs and potentially catch them slipping. And they're the most wild card team, I think, of all the playoff contenders right now in terms of their floor is very, very low, but their ceiling is pretty high with some of the caliber of defensive players that they have to be able to make a play in an instant. And the way Dalton Cole has played, it's not shocking to see him score 6 touchdowns in a game anymore. So the Lightning are currently riding a 3-game winning streak, and they have back-to-back 50-point games. It seems like the Lightning offense is starting to put it together, but they face a big test in the Nashville Cats this upcoming week. But for Washington, um, yeah, it's bad. It's hard out there in every Washington. To really put it in perspective how badly this whole season has gone for them, you need to go to theaf1.com and take a look at the standings. Washington is last in the standings, but not just that. Points scored, they're currently last in the league. Points given up, they're currently last in the league. So they have the worst offense, the worst defense. But to make it even worse than that, they've scored 212 points in 9 games. Corpus Christi has scored 224 points in 6 games. That means Corpus Christi has scored 12 more points than Washington in 3 less games. That's insane. That's insane to think about. And it's I don't I don't know what else to say. Like the Washington offense has just been terrible all year, and it seems like no matter what quarterback they throw out there, it doesn't work out. They try a lot of deep ball stuff, and it just doesn't work. The only time they scored in this game was on a broken down play where the quarterback ended up tucking it and running it, whether that be Dom Schaffner, whether that be Adam Cruz. That was the only offense that they had in this game. And Washington had a medley of errors in this game, not just at the quarterback position, but at the wide receiver position. When they were finally able to get it out to the wide receivers and let them make a play, they were fumbling the ball and coughing it up. And with this Washington team, the wide receivers have to play a basically perfect game in order for this team to have a chance to win, just because they already have a ton of stuff going against them at the quarterback position and at the offensive line. When the wide receiver starts messing up, that's a problem, and you have a 52-20 type of game here. That's just not fun for anybody except Oregon, I guess. But this on-field product for Washington is just a brutal watch, which is a shame because Washington is doing so many great things off the field, engaging with their community, building a culture, building a foundation for years to come. And the team on the field is just not there. And there's going to be growing pains with any team and organization. I fully empathize with that. But the offense has produced the following numbers so far this season: 33, 35, 23, 21, 20, 41, 9, 10, 20. That's not great. Again, adds up to 212 points over 9 games, and that's just not a good enough clip to win consistently in the AF1. We're going to flip over to the IFL now, where we had a full 7-game slate in the Indoor Football League. Starting on Friday night, Tulsa Oilers at the Quad City Steamwheelers, and Tulsa won this game 36-34. And heading into this week, it felt like this was Tulsa's game to lose. It wasn't looking like Daquan Neal was going to start at quarterback for Quad City. Tulsa was coming in fairly healthy, and it was expected that, hey, Tulsa's probably going to come in here, win this thing wire to wire. No sweat. It's going to be fine. They got this. They got it in the bag. But that wasn't the case. The Oilers offense started off great with 2 touchdown drives, but stalled in the second quarter as they missed a couple of field goals, and they were able to score a touchdown right before halftime on a tush push. But lucky for Tulsa, Quad City's offense also sputtered a little bit in the second half. to match some of the misfortunes that they had on offense. So luckily for them, their defense was able to step up and force Demery Croft into some unideal situations and get out of Dodge without much to show for it on the scoreboard. But the Oilers were able to score on 3 out of their 4 second half drives while working the clock and doing just enough to hold on to the win. But it feels like this is one that shouldn't have been a sweat. Like I said, TJ Edwards had 5 total touchdowns on the day. And with the exception of a crazy 12-yard scramble he had, where he probably ran about 45, 50 yards on the field to gain this 12 yards for a touchdown, the ground game for Tulsa was pretty bottled up and not able to do much. And big credit to that Quad City defensive line for being as disruptive and dominant as they have been all year. They were as much, if not more, in this game as well. So Tulsa got the win, but it makes you wonder how different this game would have been with a healthy Daquan Neal in the lineup for Quad City. Before Quad City, this was an impressive game considering the circumstances. You took TJ Edwards and the Oilers to the limit, only lost by 2 with your backup quarterback. And if you have that MVP, former league MVP and front runner for league MVP this year, and Daquan Neal in this game, they probably win this game. They probably win this game big based on how it all played out. And just a massive kudos to the Steamwheelers defense for how well they played containing TJ Edwards and really limiting that explosive big play and neutralizing that rushing attack that usually tears teams up and puts teams in a really, really bad spot, especially in the third and fourth quarter as they wear you down. But they gave their team a fighting chance with a backup quarterback against one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And once Daquan Neal gets back in the mix here for Quad City, they're going to be a dangerous team yet again. Quad City is currently 6-0 with Daquan Neal at quarterback and 0-2 without him, and they need him back as soon as possible because they blinked and suddenly Tulsa, Jacksonville, and Green Bay are knocking on the door at the top of the East. Quad City was 6-0. Now they're now 6-2. We got Green Bay 5-3, Tulsa 5-2, Jacksonville 5-2. So that 2 game cushion that they had on the other teams is now gone. It's like a 1 game cushion or a half-game cushion at most. So the East is going to be very interesting to see how it unfolds the rest of the season. And again, I think it's the third or fourth time I've said this in the past 3 minutes. It depends on how healthy Daquan Neal is and how quickly they can get him back in the lineup. But another game that took place on that Friday night was between the Tucson Sugar Skulls and the Bay Area Panthers, and Bay Area won this game 68-57. So Bay Area is a wagon. They just are. And I realize I've been referring to them as a wagon on blogs and social media, and some folks may not understand what I mean by that. That's fair. That's fair. It's hockey slang. It's basically in hockey slang, a wagon refers to a team that is consistently successful, hot at the moment, considered a strong contender for the playoffs. It usually signifies a team with a high caliber roster and a winning streak. That sums up Bay Area right now. They have a high caliber roster, strong contender for the playoffs with how they've been playing all year. And with the way that their offense played in this game, they were unbelievable and probably would have destroyed any team in the IFL on this night. Tucson came in with a really strong defense that kept them in a ton of ball games, but Bay Area's offense just steamrolled them, just absolutely flattened them. They ran for a combined 168 yards on the ground with Josh Jones at quarterback and Josh Thomas at wide receiver, each getting 80 yards apiece. Jones accounted for 4 rushing touchdowns, Thomas adding 1 more as well. And this was just one of the most impressive overall offensive performances in the IFL as a whole. And the Panthers offense is they're just looking phenomenal right now. And the usual stout defense was getting run through, and Tucson did a really good job of picking apart that defense and keeping up with the Panthers for the majority of the game. But Panthers did have a couple plug and play scenarios in the secondary and on defense. So when this team is back to 100%, they're going to be scary. They're going to be scary for any team that has to face them the rest of the way and in the playoffs. And they're going to be a tough out for anybody. And they have a strong argument to be made to make that IFL national championship. But for Tucson, while their defense did get scorched, this was a really promising game in terms of their offense. The offense has really been their weakness for the past season and a half. if we really go back to last year. They started off strong in 2024 with Malik Mitchell, but they had a quarterback carousel over the last 12 games of 2024 and the first 3 games of 2025, if we're being honest. But they were barely able to break 20 points in the first couple weeks of this season, but they've been able to put up 40 twice over the last couple of weeks, and then nearly 60 in this one against a Bay Area team that's pretty damn good on defense historically. So George Reyna, he's really cemented himself as the QB1 for the Sugar Skulls. He's improved week over week with more time in the system and figuring things out. And he was able to make some really big plays through the air while also being really impressive on the ground. Specifically, there was a really, really cool scramble play where it looked like he was just going to run and get out of bounds, but he cut up field and was able to get some blockers and ended up taking it in for a touchdown. So it was a nifty little run that looked like something you'd see from TJ Edwards or Jerome Johnson. But running back Jameis Williams, he's one of the quickest players in the IFL, and I think he is somebody that's going to absolutely explode on the scene, even more than he already has. He had a 3 touchdown game a couple weeks back. It feels like he's destined to have a massive game here very, very soon. But Tucson had some boneheaded, self-inflicted penalties in this one that really cost them early and put them in a spot where they were down 20 plus in the first half, and they were able to fight back and get within 1 possession. But if they don't do that and give Bay Area free first downs after stopping them on third and fourth down, this might be a totally different ballgame. We might be talking about Tucson coming out with a win and being 4-3 instead of 3-4 right now. So I think Tucson is a very interesting team. They've done like a complete 180 from what we've seen from them earlier this year, where the offense was disgusting and the defense was really, really great. Now the offense is looking really, really great. And then the defense has some work to do based on how this past game went. So I'm very interested to see how they adjust and see how they can keep the good things going with that offense while getting that defense from the first half of the season back in the building and see what they can do and maybe combine both worlds. Next game we're going to talk about is the San Diego Strike Force at the San Antonio Gunslingers, and San Antonio won this game 49-48. So for the Gunslingers, it looks like they finally have their guy at quarterback after trying a few different options so far this season. Joaquin Collazo III came over from Iowa earlier this year, or earlier this week, last week, made his first start for the Gunslingers in this game, and a change of scenery was apparently what he needed and what the Gunslingers needed as well, where Collazo finished 21 of 32 for 197 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So he provided that spark that the Gunslingers needed to be a facilitator and get the ball to the playmakers, let the playmakers make plays. And Naquan Murray, he had a massive 5 touchdown game in this one, with Callie Rashad hauling in 11 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. So it looked like San Antonio was rudderless there for a bit, not sure where they were going or how they were going to like find a way to win another ball game, let alone make the playoffs or anything. And suddenly, Collazo changes their entire outlook on the season. They had to overcome a double-digit deficit in this game, and the defense was able to get a couple turnovers, and their offense kept their foot on the gas in the second half, and they were able to force overtime and steal one away from San Diego when it looked like San Diego had an opportunity to run away with this one in the first half, but kind of ran into some issues of their own. So this is something that the Gunslingers can certainly build off of, and I'm curious to see, is what we saw with Collazo a one-hit wonder, or is this something that they can continue to build off of and get some repeat performances out of him? But for San Diego, this was a tough one to see slip away because it looked like they were starting to get things going on offense, and they just got stuck a handful of times and weren't able to convert on a couple of drives. And those couple of drives that they couldn't convert on ended up being the difference in the game in this one. And they missed 2 field goals in the first half, 2 turnovers in the second half, while San Antonio was able to just maximize on more of those opportunities. So San Antonio was able to force overtime, steal the win away from San Diego, and this was one of those games that felt like a gimme game for San Diego. And maybe I don't know, maybe they felt the same way going into that one, where it's like, yeah, we got this, yeah, we're good. They did not get this. They were not good. But wide receiver John Maldonado, he continues to look really good in this offense. He had 7 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And they keep finding different ways to get running back, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive weapon, Rudy Johnson involved. He had 18 total touches on the day. And this offense wasn't bad in this one. They scored nearly 50 points. Granted, it was with overtime, but just being able to finish more of their drives in the end zone is what is missing right now. And they started to get Ed Vander a little bit more involved, both on the ground and through the passing game. But I still think there's more that can be done there to get him involved, especially in the red zone, to really push the pile and convert some of those into touchdown drives. But San Diego has been one of the more disappointing teams in the IFL so far this year. For me personally, I thought they were going to be a lot better than they actually are, and they still have the talent to be a contender in the Western Conference. But this San Antonio game again was supposed to be one that San Diego uses to build that momentum and get back on track and springboard themselves into that playoff race again. But now they're sitting at 3-4, and they don't really have a lot of margin for error here soon. They've got a couple games against Northern Arizona coming up, but Northern Arizona is not looking like a walkover anymore either. So San Diego's in a tough spot right now, and they have the talent to be able to turn things around, but they got to put it together all in a single game. Speaking of putting it all together in a single game, brings us to our next game, the Fisher's Freight at the Jacksonville Sharks. Jacksonville won this game 59-27. So I've been tough on Jacksonville's all year, especially their offense, with some of the empty possessions, some of the unfulfilled potential that they've had through the first 6 games of the season, where the defense has played outstanding football, leading the league in turnovers forced, leading the league in interceptions, forced fumbles. The defense is more than doing their part, but the offense was giving the ball back to these other teams far more often than you would want to see. But in this game, they played a near perfect game on offense, where every drive ended in the end zone for a touchdown for the Sharks. You can't really get much better than that. Like what can you ask for? Maybe 2 point conversions at the end of each one instead of just kicking an extra point. But Caleb Barker, he put together a really strong game with 0 turnovers, zero, and that's huge for the Sharks team, because they were winning games despite some of these self-inflicted wounds this season. And now this is a game where it all came together, and this showed what the Sharks team can be when everything is fully clicking and when everything is headed in the right direction. So wide receiver Jaden Stoshak holding 4 catches, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was his 5th straight game with a touchdown catch, and he's putting together quite a season. So he might be a sneaky contender for some all IFL teams later on in the season. But Barker ended up with 5 total touchdowns on the day, and they were able to get recently acquired running back Larry McCammon from San Diego involved in the running game. And that seems to be something that gave this team a boost. At running back, they've been decimated by injuries. Jimmy Robinson, Tyler King out, shipping off Ed Vander to San Diego. McCammon seems to be the right guy at the right time for this team. And this is just an unbelievable game from the Sharks. And they've already matched their win total from 2024. And it's in week 9 of the 2025 season. So they're only going to go up from here. And it seems like they are destined to make the playoffs and potentially make some noise beyond that. But for Fishers, they're just in hell right now at the quarterback position. And I mentioned in the blog I posted for picks last week before the weekend of games. It seems like no matter what quarterback they choose to start, they always manage to choose the wrong one. Where it's very similar to what Quad City was experiencing last year, where they'd go with quarterback A, but then they'd throw in quarterback B, and quarterback B would be hot. Okay, let's start quarterback B next game. Quarterback B wouldn't start so well. Quarterback A would come in, be hot, and they were just constantly juggling between the two. And Fishers finds themselves in a very similar situation where Jaya Wright seems to be the guy sometimes, but then Keegan Shoemaker comes in, and it's like, okay, well maybe he's actually the guy. But in reality, I'm not sure either one is the guy. Like they might need to go out of house to figure out their quarterback situation. The offense just looks disjointed. They just looked rough, and they couldn't get out of their own way in the first half. The first 5 drives of the game against the Sharks: interception, turnover on downs, turnover on downs, touchdown, yay, turnover on downs. So 4 turnovers on their first 5 drives, and it's hard to beat any team like that, let alone the Jacksonville Sharks. And the Sharks defense is very good. Don't get me wrong; they are a very, very good team, but the quarterbacks for Fishers, they have to do better. They went a combined 10 for 22 for 92 passing yards, one touchdown, three interceptions through the air. And with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, the score of this game was 42-7. So they played what? Do the quick math here, 42 minutes, and they had 7 points on the board. That's a crazy score line to see in the IFL, and the Freight are in serious need of a new quarterback and a fresh face. And there just happens to be one that was released a few weeks back that has experience playing under Dixie Wooten in the past. Go to offthewallfb.com to see who I'm talking about on the most recent blog. But moving on to the next game we're going to talk about is the Green Bay Blizzard at the Iowa Barnstormers, and Green Bay won this game 74-58. So 74-58, what is that? 132 points. That's incredible. That's crazy. This Green Bay team has taken a big step on offense from last year, and which is impressive because they were already a good offense last year. They were, and they I think they have the brightest outlook so far for the rest of the 2025 season based on what we've seen so far from this offense. A lot of returning pieces from last year, and it looks like they really picked up where they left off and then some. With Max Mailer just having an unbelievable game. Or unbelievable season so far, and you got to have him in that IFL MVP conversation at this point. But he had 8 passing touchdowns on 13 completions in this one, and he added a rushing touchdowns, and this Blizzard offense just could do no wrong in this game. Quarterback slash wide receiver TJ Davis, he's been an absolute lightning rod at wide receiver this year, and he has highlight reel catch after highlight reel catch. He had 4 catches for 4 touchdowns in this one, and he's just been an incredible asset to this Blizzard offense, and seems to be getting better and better at the wide receiver position each week as he gets more comfortable with it, because he came in as a quarterback. He's still listed as a quarterback, but with how good of an athlete he is, you can't keep him off the field. You got to find a way to get him in the mix. And last season, the Blizzard were a stingy defense with an offense that would physically beat you up. Now they're an electric offense that can score on any given play, with the defense that's finding its groove and finding its way and trying to regain some of that form from last year. So they've got some reinforcements coming after the bye week. It looks like they'll have a couple announcements to be made about some players coming back to the Green Bay defense, and I'd expect them to get that defense worked out. And if this offense can even stay within the same stratosphere of what they've been playing over the past month or so, they're going to be a very hard out for any team through the second half of the regular season. But for Iowa, they got absolutely manhandled yet again. And heading into halftime, this was a 47-21 game. Realistically, should have been 47-13 based on that stupid dumb play that I posted on X. So go check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But they managed to get things going in the second half and make the bleeding look not as bad. But this game perfectly sums up the formula for what the Iowa Barnstormers are this season. Start slow, multiple first half turnovers, light it up in the second half, give false hope for next week, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Wide receiver Quan Williams, he's having one of the best seasons in the IFL so far this year, and he's just not getting a ton of recognition for it because this Iowa team is just so bad. In this game alone, he had 9 catches, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, 7 kick returns, 186 return yards, a touchdown, and an offensive fumble recovery right before halftime. So it's like, what more could he possibly do to help this team? There's nothing else he could possibly do. And I know I've been discussing this Iowa offense at length over the past couple of weeks, but this defense is playing at a historically bad level as well. You look at the San Antonio defense from last year, historically one of the worst defenses we've seen in the IFL. Statistically, they were giving up 53.6 points per game, which is a ton of points. This Iowa defense is currently giving up 54.9. So they're on a worse pace historically than the worst defense of all time last year in San Antonio. It's just bad all around in Iowa, and they're sitting at 1-6 on the year in a very top-heavy Eastern Conference, and they got to play some of those teams at the top of the Eastern Conference again. They got to face Vegas from the West at some point this year, and it's just not looking great for Iowa, and it's getting harder and harder to find those opportunities to grab some wins for the Barnstormers, and it's just going to be a rough second half of the season for them as well. But speaking of Vegas, Vegas is the next game that we're going to talk about. The Vegas Nighthawks at the Arizona Rattlers, and Arizona won this game 50-47. So I had this game circled as a game of the week, not just in the IFL, but for the entire arena and indoor football weekend, and it delivered. Arizona was down 12 with a minute left, and they came back and won in regulation thanks to a touchdown, onside kick recovery, which is a little dicey, a little questionable, some home cooking there, but it's fine. And then another touchdown with 9 seconds left to take the lead for good. And so this Dalton Snead at quarterback, he wasn't jumping off the stat sheet for most of the game. He wasn't playing his best game, but he lit it up when it counted. Very similar to the Green Bay game earlier this year, where he wasn't at his best, but when the fourth quarter came, they were able to make it work and you know connect on those last few drives and get a little bit of magic to work their way to pull out the win. And Isaiah Houston at wide receiver, he's another one where he didn't have a great first three quarters, but in that fourth quarter, he absolutely came in clutch for this team. He ended up with 7 catches, 67 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including that game winner with less than 10 seconds to go. Now, there were some referee decisions in this one that went in favor of the Rattlers that were a little questionable. That's why I mentioned the home cooking thing a little bit earlier. The touchdown to Jamal Miles to make it a one possession game before the onside kick looked like the ball wasn't fully in control, might have been out of bounds, but didn't have a good camera angle for it to overturn it. Vegas ended up challenging that. It got upheld. Very next play, onside kick. It looked like it was touched by Arizona at the 9-yard mark before the 10 to make it legal. And they didn't call it. But for Vegas, they didn't have any timeouts left to challenge it. So there was nothing they could do. They just had to play defense and hold on and hope for the best. And Arizona was able to go down there and score the touchdown with 9 seconds left. So this is a really great game, probably one of the better games you'll see all year. And Arizona just finds ways to show up time and time again in the fourth quarter to be able to find ways to win these games. And that's a reason why they're at the top of the Western Conference right now. But for Vegas, they had this game under control and they should have been able to walk away with the win just based on the eye test on this game as a whole. They were able to convert on a lot more of those clutch plays through the first 55, 58 minutes of the game. That final 2 minutes was just what did them in on this one. Jerome Johnson looked good in this one, 6 total touchdowns, but he did have a completion percentage below 50%, so that's not great. But Antonio Wimbush, he only managed to get 5 rushes total in this game, and that's something that I hope we see more of from Vegas. When Jaden DeLauro was starting for Vegas, Antonio Wimbush and the other wide receivers were getting a ton of carries and helping take some of that pressure off of DeLauro. And we're not seeing that same thing with Jerome Johnson. We're seeing Jerome Johnson take a lot of the hits in the running game and in the passing game as well. I would like to see them be a little bit more intentional with running it with Wimbush in these situations. And when, like, I don't have to tell them this, but we know what Jerome Johnson is capable of when, you start working them, faking the handoff to Wimbush in the third quarter, let Jerome Johnson go wild and, score on a long run play, bust it open for a easy first down. There's lots of good things that can come when you are able to run the ball early, incorporate that play action, and let an athlete like Jerome Johnson do his thing out there late in the game. So I think they gotta make that a higher priority just to make that play action read option game even more deadly. But wide receiver Quentin Randolph, he had an incredible game in this one as well. 8 catches, 113 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So big play after big play for Randolph, and he's continuing to add to his all IFL resume for this season. And Vegas should be fine the rest of the way. They're going to have some tough games on the horizon, but they also have a couple games that they should be able to win very comfortably, and they're in a pretty good spot to be able to make the playoffs. And once they make the playoffs, anything can happen, especially with the caliber of offense that they have. But they got a rematch with Arizona coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think they have a game with San Diego this upcoming week, so that'll be a big one for them to win to help increase that gap between them in the Western Conference. But the final game of the weekend is going to be the Massachusetts Pirates at the Northern Arizona Wranglers. And Northern Arizona finally got in the win column. They finally won their first game of the season, 33-24. Ramon Atkins got his first start of the year for the Wranglers. He looked pretty good out there. There were some things that he wasn't fully dialed in on, knocking the rust off a little bit, and he could have been a little bit more precise with things. But hey, that takes time. It takes a couple weeks to get into a rhythm with some of your guys out there, and you could tell that schematically it was working, but just the timing on the pass was just 2 feet too far, 2 feet, too short. Like there was just some plays that were like, man, if they run this play again in 2, 3 weeks, they probably nail this, and this game is an absolute blowout. But he was able to connect with Deshaun Stoudemire, 5 catches, 67 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and the offense as a whole is starting to look better. And when they have Ramon Atkins out there, keep putting him out there, and he was able to really take care of the ball while also finding ways to get it to the people that can do something with it. They won the turnover battle, and again, they had a handful of passes that were just so close. So I'm excited to see what this Northern Arizona team can do over the next couple of weeks to build on this first win of the year. And the defense for Northern Arizona played well, and were really able to put the Pirates offense in some tough spots all game and force a passing attack that's been less than ideal, to say the least, into some tough spots, and really force them into making some poor mistakes that the Wranglers defense was able to capitalize on. And they were able to hold an opposing offense to under 30 for the first time this season. Great game all around for the Wranglers, but this was an absolute disaster for Massachusetts. If you're the Pirates, if this is the panic button, you are absolutely smashing the hell out of the panic button, and you're making every phone call possible to see if you can get a new quarterback in the room and see if you can get that quarterback situation taken care of, because Kenji Bahar is just not the guy. He's a rookie, yes, but we're entering week 9 at this point, and he's still making some of those mistakes that you would see in week 1, week 2, while he's figuring out the indoor game, and some of the more basic stuff that should be sorted out by now continues to be a problem. He was airmailing a ton of passes in the red zone, not even giving his wide receivers a chance to get it. He's throwing a bunch of balls in the turf on some throws to the outside, and he just isn't the guy for this Pirates offense to work. They either need to give some reps to Felix Harper, who was signed on as the backup here, or find somebody from the outside. Maybe they bring back Alejandro Benefield. That's an idea. I don't know. They just need somebody to come in here and be the guy that the Pirates need them to be, because these high caliber wide receivers in Massachusetts, they can't get the ball to them, and they can't make a play because the ball just can't get to them for them to do anything with it. The only bright spot on this Pirates offense was running back Dominic Roberto. He looked really good in this one, able to make some things happen with 61 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. But outside of that, there wasn't really much to be proud of. And the Pirates are sitting at 2-5 on the season so far, entering a bye week this upcoming week, and I'd expect some of the deck to be shuffled a little bit as they look to get back on track. But it's something where the Pirates need answers on offense, and they need them ASAP. All right, lastly, we're going to touch on the National Arena League. We got a couple games to dive into. First one here is Colorado Spartans going to Idaho to face the Idaho Horsemen. Colorado won this game 68-20. Absolute domination by the Spartans here. Quarterback Andre Sale, friend of the program. He had an incredible game, going 13 for 21 for 183 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was able to connect with Bizette Woodley and Steve Newbold Jr. 6 times apiece. Woodley hauling in 96 yards and 3 touchdowns. Newbold Jr. going for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this passing attack for Colorado has really been unlocked with Sale at quarterback. It was something that was really struggling early on in the year when they had, I think, Trotman at quarterback. They were able to run the ball really impactfully, but passing the ball was just not a thing that they were able to do successfully, which was a shame given the talent that they have at the wide receiver position. And I would highly recommend checking out a Colorado Spartans game over these next couple of weeks. They play Sioux City next week, and then Omaha in the last week of the season. That's going to be a really fun one to see in the last regular season game before the playoffs get started. And this game was never in doubt for the Spartans. This was one where basically as soon as the game kicked off, it was like, okay, we have a feeling of what's about to happen here. And they're putting together a really great season, and they've locked up a playoff spot with only a couple weeks left in the year. But again, they got a couple tough games against Sioux City and Omaha to finish off the season before the playoffs officially start. But for Idaho, they're a mess. They just could not seem to get things going on offense, and they threw every option they had at the quarterback position, hoping for something to work. And ever since Caleb Lowe left for the IFL, um, it's been unideal. They just haven't really been able to function at the level that they were earlier on in the season. Wide receiver Kyler Hinson was able to get a little bit going for them, but that barely, it was a drop in the bucket at that point. He ended up having 7 catches, 62 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But there really wasn't a standout performer beyond him. It was just a bunch of guys out there, and Kyler Hinson from what it seemed like. But this Idaho team is just puzzling to watch. Schematically, they refuse to use high motion. They at times look like they're just drawing plays up in the dirt. They're doing a lot of quad left, quad right, lots of intricate patterns, and not really accomplishing the basics at times. And it's just a weird approach to offensive football, and it is offensive football at times. And it seems like they got a good thing going in the community of Idaho, and it seems like they have pretty good crowd support there, get for what it is, and it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing and how they end up growing, and hopefully finding some positives for them to build off of heading into 2026. Next game we're going to talk about is the Sioux City Bandits taking on the Wheeling Miners, and Wheeling won this game 28-20. So the Wheeling Miners got a much needed win here to keep their playoff hopes alive. And they did the majority of their dirty work on the ground here. Quarterback James Summers ended up having 19 carries for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns, with wide receiver Javi Flowers having 46 yards on the ground and a touchdown as well. There was nearly no passing game for the Miners at all in this one. They only had 5 completions for 36 yards. But for them, they didn't have to do a ton because that defense was playing very, very strong. On the defensive side, Brandon Munoz had 5.5 total tackles and 2 sacks in the game. So being able to be as disruptive as he was, and linebacker Cornell Jones had a huge pick six that ended up being arguably the biggest play of the day for either team in this one, and really flipped the momentum and really kept it on Wheeling's side. And this is a massive win for Wheeling, as again they keep their playoff hopes alive. They go into a home and home, a very rare home and home series to end the season with Columbus, where they need to win both of these games against Columbus in order to leapfrog and be in the playoffs. If they lose just one of them, Columbus is going to be in. So a very crucial stretch of games against Columbus to end the season for Wheeling. But for the Bandits, a disappointing season is just about over, and they're going to be on the outside looking in when it comes time to the playoffs, just because of where they're at with Omaha and Colorado being in their division. And it seems like we're at the end of an era in Sioux City. The quarterbacks in this one, it was a little weird how evenly they split time, and statistically, they were almost dead even. They each had 16 pass attempts. They each had 1 touchdown. They each had 1 interception. Difference is Tyler Lowenstein had the edge on completions, and Verlin Reed had the edge on scrambles and rushing yards. So they're pretty even. And it seems like they're going to have to make a choice on a direction to go, because they're falling into the trap of, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. And to me, I probably go with Lowenstein in the future, if that is the choice you have to make. But we'll see what they end up doing. But this offense has a lot of great pieces, but they just don't have the X factor against these better teams. They're able to really lay it on Idaho. They were able to absolutely spank them. But then when it comes time to, doing the same thing against the Omahas, against even the Wheelings here, they just weren't able to make it all work and make all the pieces fit on that puzzle on offense. So it seems like something's got to change, and I'm sure we'll see some new faces, and maybe a new approach to the offense next year. But on defense, Juan Moore, he had a very big game on this one, 12 total tackles, and he was just seemed to be a magnet to wherever the ball was on any given play. And similar to that defense, or similar to the offense rather, there is some serious talent on this defensive side of the ball. They, like, you go up and down the roster, you're like, all right, that's a dude, that's a guy. Like, let's go. This team rules. But they're sitting outside the playoffs right now, and they're after making the championship game last season. And the defense did a pretty good job of containing the Miners' offense in this one, but they just didn't get much complimentary football from their counterparts here. And They're going to miss the playoffs, and it's going to be an interesting offseason for Sioux City to see the different approach that they take for the future of the franchise in 2026 and beyond. But I'm going to say final game, air quote final game. Um, you'll understand why I say that in about 3 minutes. We had the Columbus Lions face the Beaumont Renegades, and Beaumont got their first loss of the season. Columbus won this game 40-37. So naturally, a Beaumont game came with some late game theatrics that made things far more interesting than you would have thought if you had watched the first 56, 57 minutes of this game. Beaumont was just getting boat raced at times, and they just looked outmatched. And they just had a hard time finding an answer on offense to what Columbus was doing. And with a minute left in the game, they're down by 17. They score a touchdown, recover the kick, and then score a touchdown again to make it a 3-point game with 38 seconds left. So they end up scoring 14 points in 22 seconds. And then suddenly you're like, it's a 3-point game. Like this is Beaumont football. This is what they do. But it just wasn't quite enough to stay undefeated as they took that first loss of the season. But quarterback Carl Robinson, he had an okay game in this one, going 89 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, adding another on the ground. Newly acquired running back Denarius Antoine, he made a splash in this one, getting 11 carries for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that Renegades defense um, wasn't what we were used to so far this season. They gave up a couple of big scores throughout the game to really put themselves in a not so great spot, but the offense just wasn't able to answer and keep them in this one until it was a little bit too late. So I still think this Beaumont Renegades team is very fun, and they have a legitimate chance to make a run in the playoffs. They are going to be in the playoffs at this point, and they have a chance to win the league in their very first year of existence, which is really cool and a really exciting thing for this upstart franchise. But for Columbus, they needed this one badly in order to cement their spot as the front runner for the playoffs heading into the final weeks of the season. Vincent Espinosa, I wasn't sure if he was going to be the guy for the Lions, and he had a really strong game in this one. He ended up going 12 for 19, 136 yards and 4 touchdowns, where he was able to find wide receiver Jermon Fortson for 3 of those touchdowns, and wide receiver Travion Samuel. He had a really good game. He's probably had one of the most unique stat lines you'll see in all the NAL. He had 39 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and then 4 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. So he was all over the place, getting action and on the ground and through the air. And this Columbus team has been rebounding ever since they just bottomed out about a month ago at this point. And it looks like they have things turned around and they're headed in the right direction. And Espinoza is getting hot just at the right time as they make a push to the playoffs. So they have a really big home and home with Wheeling to end the season, where they just got to win one of these games and they are in a very good position to clinch a playoff spot. But if they drop both, it looks like Wheeling is going to be in. So it's going to be a fun finish to the season in the NAL. And the final game of the week, which is why I said the air quote game, was a Shreveport Rougarou facing the Dallas Falcons, who's a semi-pro team. Dallas had this game in the bag, and towards the end, a big brawl broke out, and a bunch of players ended up getting ejected. And Dallas, based on what the commentary team was saying, didn't have enough players to field a team in overtime, so they ended up forfeiting the game. So Dallas probably would have won this game had they played it out, but because of the brawl, because of how everything went down at the very end of the fourth quarter, ended up being a forfeit for Shreveport. So very weird ending. Go check it out on socials. On X, I posted the video of it and how it all went down. It was just a very bizarre situation. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to check it out. Thank you again to Coach O'Neill for hopping on, telling us about the TAL, telling us about the Duluth, telling us how he got involved with everything there. It seems like they got a good program built out there, and I'm excited to see what the TAL does this upcoming year and beyond. It seems like they, like I mentioned before, it seems like they have a good footing and a good league leadership, and it's going to take some time for them to grow it into what they want it to be, but seems like it's going to be very cool. So I'm excited to see it grow. So big shout out to Coach O'Neill for joining the show. Make sure you're following us on socials at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky Threads, all the things and stuff. Give us a follow on there. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you're liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing with a friend, commenting who you think's going to win this weekend, all the things and stuff. And then if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you're rating the show 5 stars, liking the episode, sharing with a friend, doing all that stuff as well. Helps the show grow and helps us, scale this thing out. We're in the middle of arena football season. Now's the time to let people know about what we're doing here. So appreciate all the support. Only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend like an hour 20, hour 30, roughly. I don't know. I'm usually close on these guesses. I don't know. The fact that you chose to spend that time here listening, watching this, means a lot. So really appreciate the support so far. And yeah, let's have a great weekend of arena ball coming up, and let's enjoy it. Come say hi on socials. Let me know what game you're excited to see. And yeah, let's have a good weekend. Take care.